Okay, everyone. I am Royston Emmanuel, and today we're addressing the security issues with our Google Meet sessions. Now, we all understand that Google Meet may not be as secure as we want it to be, but there are workarounds that we can use in order to ensure that our students are not able to share unsavory images, that we can remove students if they are misbehaving, that we can mute students and mute one student, two students, or all students in a classroom. The idea behind this video is to help you teachers feel more empowered to use Google Meet. So what we're going to do is more or less demonstrate ways that you can take control over what happens in those sessions. So we're going to begin by looking at how we generate a Google Meet link in our Google Classroom. So this is my Google Classroom right here. Notice to the in the banner of my classroom, I have an option here to generate meeting link. Also, when I go to the settings, I can also scroll down and generate my meeting link. So I'm going to generate my meeting link from here. Why? Because I also have the option to decide whether that meeting link is visible to students or not. So I'm going to generate my meeting link, and I'm going to select the option to not make it visible to students. Now that I have done that, I am going to save. Okay, and notice my link shows up right here, but it is not visible to students. Obviously, as a teacher, I can access it. So why did I do it that way? I did it that way because this will allow you, the teacher, to join the sessions before the student and set the necessary host settings to avoid some of the issues that may emerge when you have different type of students with all different ideas joining your sessions. So let us see how this works. I'm going to click on my meeting link and I am going to join my meeting. Now that I have joined my meeting, I can simply go to my controls, my settings, by clicking on the expand button right here, select settings, and I can go to host controls and immediately turn off quick access. And by turning off quick access, we making it clear that students cannot join before us, okay? That people who are not authenticated in our domain must ask permission to join at all times, okay? And people cannot join anonymously. It means that they must have a name that is authenticated by our domain. And in this case, our domain is our Google domain. And so as long as the student enters with their Google email address that is supplied by your school, then that data will be pulled into Google Meet. Another thing we can do, we can turn off the option to share screen and turn off the option to send chat messages, which actually gives us a high level of control. When we have done that, we can simply close this and we can start waiting for students to join our session. So now that I have set up the security features, I am going to go back to my Google Classroom and I am going to make my Google Meet link visible. I'm going to go back to settings, scroll down, and I am going to check right here, save, and my Meet link is visible. So let's just go back to my Meet and let us see what happens as students attempt to enter the session. Okay, so our first student attempts to enter the session. They must click Ask to Join, and immediately the option comes up. So you have a notification that tells you that this person wants to join. As the teacher, you need to determine if the account is authenticated. This is e-learning SALCC. This is exactly as the exact data coming out of your Google domain. So I say yes as a teacher, I know this person is in my class, and I admit. Okay, so let us see who else is going to join. So here we have a notification from SALCC student, and of course this is authenticated by our Google domain, so I know this student is in my classroom, and so I admit the student. So let us have a quick look at what the student sees. So this is SALCC students Google Meet view, and let's just look down here at their controls. So yes, they can unmute, yes, they can show video, but they cannot share their screen. And if we go into the chat, they cannot add anything in the chat. And of course, if we go to the participants, notice that SALCC student cannot remove anybody from the session, so they do not have those controls. Now let's talk about the option of sharing video here. The option of sharing video is something that must be organized by your Google administrator. So whoever it is at your organization who is responsible for the back end of Google, they need to go into Google admin, go to the Google Meet option, and change the settings that will prevent students from sharing their video at will. Okay, so they can set it so that video can be shared with the permission of the teacher. So that is something for your Google admin. So if you need that done, please contact them, whether at your school or at the ministry, to get that done. But what we have noticed here is that SALCC student who is a student in this session has very few privileges. So we are now back at the screen of our teacher, and notice he or she has all the students in the class. So let's have a look at what the teacher can do. So if we go to our participants, notice that the teacher has the option to remove students from the meeting. Also note that the teacher can mute all students, especially when there's a lot of noise and you're not sure who is unmuted. You can mute all students with one click, or you can mute specific students. So let us try this out. So I'm going to turn on the mic of SALCC student. And so notice how easily the teacher can turn off the mic of SALCC student. And if SALCC student decides to misbehave, or the teacher is asking the student to stop sharing the video, which is right here, the teacher can simply go to this option and just do what you need to do. After you have warned the student, you have asked the student to comply, you simply remove the student from the meeting. Now, in removing the student from the meeting, you could also fill out an abuse report that will send that information, unfortunately, to Google, which will, of course, flag this account as a problematic account. So that is an option you have. I do not know what ministry policy is on that, but we're not going to fill this out right now. So I'm just simply going to remove the student, and notice that the student is gone. So you indeed have this level of control. So what if the student wants to re-enter the session? The student needs to go to the link, okay? And of course, because you have set up your different security settings, okay, it will tell the student clearly that he or she cannot join this video call, and it is because the student has been removed. So it means that the student cannot return to the video call. So let's have a look at what I just explained here. So this is SALCC student's account. Remember that student was removed from the meeting. The student decides to go back to the link. Okay. Immediately, the student gets a pop-up, you can't join this video call. And this is because the student has been removed from the call, from the Google Meet session by you, the teacher. So that I love the security feature. So if a student is misbehaving, doing some ridiculous things, you need them out, they cannot get back in. So they could no longer be a nuisance. So we're back at our teacher's screen, and now that the teacher has removed one student, there is only one more left, and that's okay. But the important thing is that we demonstrated that the teacher has that ability to control what happens in the classroom. Let's just review how we were able to do that. Remember, we generated our link using the settings option, and we made it invisible. Then we went into our classroom and we set up our controls to make sure that students cannot share their screen, couldn't send messages, and of course we turned off quick access, which prevented anybody from entering without permission. This level of control also gave us the rights to mute students and remove students from the meeting. So we can mute students, remove students from the meeting, and that is very important. So guys, this is the first option, but when you think about it, it's kind of tedious. It means each time you have a class, you need to go into those settings, change this. You have to make sure that the link is invisible to the students, go into the Google Meet setting, make the changes, and then wait for the students. The question is there a way to organize those settings so that they remain? And the answer to that, guys, is yes. So let us take a look at a different way of setting up your Google Meet classroom. And this time, just as a disclaimer, the link will not show here, but that is all right. Okay, the link will show in your stream, but remember, this gives you more control. To add our Google Meet session, we are going to use the Google Calendar. So we've navigated to classwork, and notice the Google Calendar right here. So we are going to click on the Google Calendar, and we're going to select a date to start our Google Meet sessions. So we selected the 14th. Just going to double click on that, and I'm going to navigate to the time that my session should start. Let's say my session is starting at 1 p.m. I am going to click on 1 p.m. okay, and I am going to go to the option here, which is add Google Meet video conferencing. When I do that, it will obviously generate a link for me. So this is my Google Meet link. What I can do further, I can actually decide whether this session takes place every day, whether I want to repeat it, etc. So I could go to the option here that says doesn't repeat and choose, let's say, if I'm having this session once a week, I'll say weekly on a Tuesday, because the Tuesday is the 14th. Okay, I can add a description here. Okay, so I'm just trying my best to add a description, and I can now, which is very important, go into the settings in order to make sure I remove some of the access that the students can have. So I'm going to click on settings, and immediately this comes up, and I'm just going to uncheck quick access. What that means is that they cannot join without me, and they will never have host controls when they join the session, and that's very important. So I'm going to save that. And the important thing is, once I do that in here, I do not have to do it each time I enter the session. We have to remember that. The other thing I can do, which is quite important, is add my guest. So I can actually add my students in here so that this goes out to nobody else. It is not sent via email. It's still in your Google. It will be placed in your Google Classroom. But I am telling the system, these are the people allowed in the session. So I'm going to add SALCC student. And notice, because the students are in my domain, the autocomplete naturally comes up. And I'm going to add e-learning, again autocomplete, so I can more or less verify that this student belongs within the domain. Okay, I can actually now, very important, remove guest permissions. So no student can invite anybody else. And if I do not want them to see other students, I can uncheck that. But I will leave that for now, because in the spirit of, social presence, collaboration, I need students to see each other. Now that I have done that, all I need to do, importantly, is copy. Let me just save first. I'm going to save first. I'm not going to send anything out. Okay, just going to make sure I save. Then I'm going to go back to the area where I have set up my link right here. It's between 130 and 230, I think. I'm going to double click on it if I want to get access again. And I can simply copy my meeting link. Now that I have done that, I need to go back to my Google Classroom. Okay, go into Stream, and I'm going to add my meeting link as an announcement. Okay. Okay, I'm going to say Tuesdays 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. And then I'm just simply going to go down here and paste the link. I do not need all of this fluff, so I'm going to take all of these out. Okay, because all I need is the link. Type in Google Meet here. And this is about it. And I'm going to post it. So this is what the student sees. Okay guys, so now that we have set our security features, and remember we created our classroom, our Google Meet classroom through the calendar, we set up all the security features. Let us have a look at what happens when students we invite and people we have not invited try to join the session. So I'm going to click here. This is SALCC student, and remember that student got an invite. So I'm going to click on this student. Okay, and notice immediately they get the option to join because they were invited. Now if the teacher was not on at that time, they won't be able to join, but it tells them that the teacher is on. So training SALCC is in this call, so now they can join. So all they need to do is click join, and they're in, they're automatically authenticated. And this happens because they are joining with the email address that comes from the Google domain, which is your school's Google domain. So let's have a look at what happens with another person. So this is an outsider, and the outsider gets the notification to ask to join. The outsider clicks ask to join and is told you'll join the call when someone lets you in. So let us look at what the teacher sees. This is what the teacher sees. So the teacher gets a notification that Royce and Emmanuel, outside of the domain, this is our domain, is trying to join. And of course, one, since the person is outside of the domain, two, since the teacher doesn't recognize who this person is, all the teacher needs to do is simply click deny entry, and this person will not be allowed to enter. So what if one of our students are misbehaving? We can simply go to the participants option, show our participants, and we simply click on the students and remove that student from the meeting. We said it earlier that we can fill out an abuse report, but we don't need to do that right now. And we simply remove. Once the student is removed, this is what he or she will see on his or her end. You've been removed from the meeting and you can't join until invited by the guest. So let's see what happens when that student tries to re-enter. Let's go to the student's Google Classroom. Let's click on the Google Meet session. And it tells them immediately you can't join this video call. So once you have removed the student, remember, the student cannot join the video call. Okay, so we're back at our teacher's screen. So I just need you to remember that you indeed have a lot of control over the sessions as long as you set up your Google Meet properly. You can mute all participants. You can mute individual participants. Okay, you can prevent them from sharing their screen. You could prevent them from participating in the chat. The only thing that really, bothers me about Google Meet is that you need your administrator to go into the back end in order to change the options for students to share video. So we need to get our administrators to look into that, go to the Google admin backend and remove some of the privileges of students. But the long and short of it is that we are not as helpless as we may believe or people may think we are. We have a lot of control of our live sessions. So let us just recap how we did all of that. Okay, so we found two options, two ways of organizing our Google Meet so that we can have more control, so it can be more secure. We use the first option of generating the meeting link and making that link invisible to students. There's one thing I need to add here. What I find is a very good safety feature is that Google Meet gives you the opportunity to keep resetting your Google Meet link, because students can go to the meeting, copy the link and always have it there and share it. So you can keep resetting your Meet link, and I would do that like maybe a few minutes before the class. Okay, and that is of course additional security. But the point is, if you keep this as invisible until it is time for students to join and you join before them, you can go in and set your security features. For me, the best way of ensuring that security features are set, and not necessarily the easiest way, is to generate your Google Meet link through the Google Classroom. And when you do it through the Google Classroom, remember, you can actually set the different security settings from here, and it remains. You never have to go back and set it. But one thing we have to remember though is when we go into our Google Meet session, we must uncheck sharing of screen and chat messages and turn them on when we need them. So guys, that is it for me. I hope this video has been helpful. I hope this video is going to change a few things when it comes to our remote teaching. You know, we are all in this together. We all understand the stress. We all understand how difficult it is. But I know if we plan the process out properly, if we try out those tips that I have shared, we will definitely be successful in managing our online classroom. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.